Welcome back to another episode of Realty Resilience. I'm your host, Dave Nations, and super excited about another great guest we have today, Kari Wyrsch out of Springfield, Missouri. Kari, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited for you to be on today. You have an amazing track record and have just dominated your business selling on the buy side, and really looking forward to you sharing how you've done it and what you've done with our audience. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of just jump in and highlight, I guess, before real estate, what you were doing, and then how you ended up in this lovely industry.
So before real estate, I went to MSU here. I was a sugar bear. I was a dancer at the university, and then I moved to St. Louis. I actually lived there for 3 years, and then I bounced out to Los Angeles, and I went out there working for retail. I had found retail while I was taking classes at the college in St. Louis, and I ended up transferring out to Los Angeles with retail and the job that I was doing. So I moved out there, and I wanted to get into acting or sports broadcast journalism. And so I did retail for a while, and I ended up on Beverly Drive, Beverly Glen, on Rodeo, all that fun stuff. And I was working there selling retail, and a girl came in and she bought all of this stuff, and we just really hit it off. It was kind of a weird one of those relationship things that just happens. And I'm like, "What do you do?" And she said, "Well, I work at Fox Sports Net." And I was like, "Oh, wow." And she's like, "I work for Best Damn Sports Show, period. You should come and watch a show, and I'll take you around and take you back around and everything else." So I was like, "Okay." So I did that. And she worked for the fourth highest person in all of Fox Sports Network. Like, people scared to go up on that floor, right? So I went in, I met with her. She introduced me to her boss, walked me all around. A couple weeks later, she called me and she was like, "Hey, I went back home to New York, and I think I'm going to go back home for a little while. I need someone to intern here. Would you want to do that?" And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." So they sent me through Fox Sports Net. I ended up quitting my job in retail. I got submitted through Fox Sports Net, and I actually started working at Fox Sports Net. And I then kind of became her position, I guess, with working for George Greenberg, who is the EVP of Programming and Production, helped create Best Damn Sports Show, period. So I worked on the back end, and that kind of started this journey of sports broadcast journalism. So then I got into Santa Monica College, did some classes over there, and was just kind of around all of the back end of the entire network, primarily in sports. So I did that, and while I was living in Los Angeles, my sister got married and came home one summer, and she said, "I'm pregnant." And I was like, "I got to move home." So I had full intentions of coming home, finishing college because I hadn't finished yet, and moving back out and going right back to, Fox Sports Net and staying in the TV. And I came home and I met my husband. Now, been together 20 years, a month later. And my dad was like, "What are you kind of thinking that you want to do?" I was going back to school. I was trying to finish. And I was like, "Well, I'm just going to stay in TV because I could go back to Fox Sports Net. There's Fox Sports Midwest." George was like, "If you need to do anything, I've got perfect places up in St. Louis." Like, we had this whole thing. And my dad was like, "I really think you need to talk to, Tom Rankin. He's in commercial real estate. He does a ton of business. Like, let me just set up a meeting." He's like, "I think you would love real estate." And so, while I was working on Rodeo Drive, there was a guy that came in. He was a commercial real estate agent. He was basically doing like a BPO. And he had kind of sparked my interest on "What are you doing?" and asking a lot of questions. And so this real estate thing kind of popped up. And so I ended up meeting with the network here, and they offered me an internship because obviously I didn't have my degree yet. And then I met with Tom, and he offered me a job as well. So I just kind of was like, I think I want to explore what this real estate world could look like, right? So he hired me on as a director of first impressions. I was, gosh, what was I, 23, 24 years old, something like that. Finished school, graduated as fast as I possibly could, got my real estate license, and started off in commercial. And that's kind of the start of my real estate world.
How'd you end up on the residential side? I guess, what were you doing on the commercial? Were you selling on the commercial side, or just the director of first
No,
impressions before you switched to residential?
yeah. So I was basically director of first impressions, did a lot of the leasing side of it. And basically I went to him and I was like, "I want to be a full-time agent, and this is what I want to do. And I want to work here full-time." And that was not taken very well. And I was asked to exit. So I then was like, okay. And so I went over to a boutique brokerage, really small brokerage. I think they had like 15 agents. I wanted to learn how to do this the best that I possibly could. And I didn't want to get lost in the sauce, right? I didn't want to be in a huge brokerage with 400 agents. And I felt like I wasn't getting a lot. And so I felt like really small was in micro was really, really important. And I was there for 3 years. I was basically the owner's right hand person. It was great, but at the same time, I really wasn't learning that much. Adam Grady, who is my partner now, he is someone who I've been friends with for a long time, and he was just growing and growing and growing, and he was building a team, and he was doing all this stuff, and I would meet him for lunch, and hey, what are you doing, and all of this kind of stuff, and he was just like, you just need to come over to KW. And so in 2012, I moved my license to July 3rd, 2012. And I had done, I think, 14 transactions the year before. I didn't even know how many transactions I had done. But, at one point in Justin and I's life, my husband, we were like, what would this look like if we could sell one house? If I could sell one house a month, right? So, I mean, I didn't have these like massive, huge goals because I didn't know what the possibility could be. And I moved over in 2012. And then in 2013, 14 and 16, I was the top individual agent at KW. And in that time, I got my broker's license, a couple different designations, like whatever. Yeah. Then
When you
I
were the
grew
top
my own team
individual
in
agent, how much were you
2016.
selling?
Sorry.
When you were the top individual agent, how much were you selling at that time?
So I did career visioning. So I really, really plugged into all of KW. I got my first MAPS coach in 2015. I did career visioning because I wanted to build a team and hire. So I basically followed the trajectory of career visioning to a T. So once I added my admin, I did 36 units, and then I added my admin, and then I did 64 units, and then I started to add another person, and then we did 88 units. And then in 2018, I had a team, not a big team. I had, my executive assistant, I had a marketing person, and then I had Justin, my husband. I had him get his license in 2016. I was like, I need help. We're going to do something big here. And I was growing really, really rapidly. And Adam came to me and said, what does this look like if we merge teams and we do this together? And so we marked up an org chart, and it wasn't like he had a big team and I had a big team. And it was this big acquisition. It wasn't that big of a deal. Like I had 4 people, he had 6 people. And we sat at the restaurant and we were just like, okay, this person fits here and this person fits here and this person fits here. It's almost like we had a bus and we were just like, there's a seat for every single person and this makes sense. And so once we got everybody's buy-in, it was just like, put on foot on the gas pedal, like, let's go.
What I love is one of the things you said a minute ago was when you made your first hire, you went from 36 to 64 deals. And I've always heard, Gary talk about and a lot of other top agents and people in the business say, when you make that first hire, they should double your business.
Hmm.
Almost exactly that, right? With this one good hire. And that's exactly why you hire that admin first,
The admin was
versus
first.
adding in an
And
agent or something.
Dean Rivers career visioning was very, very adamant about that. But whenever I go back and I look at that, I was like, gosh, I was literally just following exactly what the model told me to do.
And the model works.
Model works.
So, okay. So you and Adam get together and I'm curious too, you kind of mapped out who would fit where on the bus. How'd you determine that? Just based on the two of you and how you know what you know about each of the people and felt like, okay, this is where it's going to go?
Well, so if you think of it from my perspective, I was lead agent. Justin was my buyer's agent. Kelsey was moving over to my marketing director, but she had been an executive assistant before. And then I had a transaction manager. So the transaction manager just went to the transaction manager side. Kelsey went into marketing. Justin became one of my showing partners. So it was just like really easy. And then he had 6 people that, he had gone out of business with his buyer's agent. One of those showing partners had stayed. So they had 2 showing partners in the past. And then he already had a listing side transaction manager, and they kept everything very separate. I think those are some of the key fun systems and bumps that we learned really, really worked well. Having a buy side transaction manager and a list side transaction manager, keeping them in their 20%, right? They're not having to go back and forth with,
Yeah.
due diligence timeframes or processes and systems.
So you were a lead agent. You were doing buyers and sellers when you had your own team, correct? So how did you get convinced to go all in on just buyers? That's what's unique about what you do. And I didn't mention this in the beginning, but when you're selling on average 200 homes a year, and that's just on the buy side, And I
Yeah.
think you hear a lot of agents who, when they start out on a team, they're starting out as a buyer's agent doing some deals, but they really want to get into the listing side. You're unique in that you're not doing any listings, right? I mean, you're all buy side.
So Adam basically said, I mean, I had a business, I had a big business. So he's like, if you still want to take listings, you can absolutely do that. And what we found and how things kind of evolved is that at the time, my girls, we had twins. They were 3 years old. And me being a buyer's agent and Justin being a buyer's agent and living in the same house with twin 3 year olds, it doesn't work because you're literally on the weekends, like, I'm going to go show and you're going to watch the girls, and then you're going to go show and I'm going to watch the girls. And we're literally passing the girls back and forth. And so whenever we realized that, we were like, okay, so what if we hire another showing partner? And what if Justin takes all of my listings, that all of my sphere deal, and the people that I have loved and nurtured on for the past 10 years. And so basically he became my listing agent. So I have a team within the team. So I have a listing agent and 2 showing partners that all report to me. So I'm kind of a rainmaker on the buy side, and it works really, really well. So
That's
that
awesome.
was our solution.
So you get a lead that somebody wants to sell their house. You're giving that then to Justin. You get a buyer lead that somebody wants to buy. Then you're sitting with them, talking to them with you and your showing partner and working with them on the buy side. Is that
Yes.
how that works?
Yep.
Okay. So I think the $1 million question everybody wants to know is how do you, and you probably get asked this all the time, but how are you selling 200 homes a year just on the buy side? There are teams that won't do half that and they have an entire team and that's everything, right? So, I mean, you guys are killing it. And I always get mind blown. I'm like, it's in Springfield, Missouri. And you guys, so that's just on one side. Your entire team will do what, 450, 500 something deals?
Yeah, we're at 392 or 396, I think today, closed and pending. So
Congratulations. That's awesome.
yeah, we're on track. We're like 2 weeks ahead of last year over year, which is good, just because that's what we've been focused on is like market share. Gary's saying that people that have really, really there's teams that are absolutely killing it, and they're like 1 to 2% ahead of their last year goal. And so luckily we're seeing some of that. But I would say what how you do as much transactions as you do and keep that customer experience as high as possible. We have like almost 1,700 Google reviews. So, I mean, that's one of the things that we really, really focus on. And there are 5-star reviews, but it's just leverage. And it's really, really understanding like, what is my 20% and what are the things that I could be giving to somebody else for them to take over? And then being able to just systematize that to where it makes sense. And so that's basically what it was. I remember Adam coming into my office and he like walked over, he's like, you're not going to do that anymore. And I'm like, why? I'm like, but I can do this. And so it's just really learning about what that leverage really is and allowing somebody else to take over that for you so that you can just dial in the system.
So how are you setting expectations when somebody you've known for a long time calls you and wants to work with you to sell and buy a house? And obviously your experience is really good. You got 1,700 Google reviews, but your experience is also different than the traditional realtor who's going to help you buy and sell and do all the things.
That's a really interesting question because I think that what's interesting is that people understand how our team works. And I think that that partially goes down to like our marketing director showing off all the different aspects of our team. Because I'll have people say, like, if I come and work with you, like, will you work with me? Or who will I work with a different person in our team? And so I think that it's just we're all so good at what we do and we level each other up that it doesn't matter if it's me or if it's going to be Bo. I mean, Bo sits right next to me. I mean, you can see I've got desks around me, and so it's a in addition to, right? So when you get me, you get Bo. When you get Bo, you get me. Bo's going to be the one that's going to be meeting you at the property and showing you property. But whenever we're ready to negotiate and we're ready to write our offers, you're going to get me. That's one of the things I've learned. Probably the biggest thing through COVID and all of that is that, and through the accelerated market of 20, to 2023, is that people don't care who's opening the door for them. But now it's about value to where you have to show how you're going to open that door differently than just any other door opener. Because we're not door openers, we're professionals. So I think that it's just realizing that you're with an elite team, that you're going to get the best customer service. And this is our system, and showing them what that system is. And then, during the strategy session, I basically say, these are the three key people in the transaction for your dream home. Do you have any questions? And in that time frame, I'm pointing out, here's me, and I'm meeting with you now. Here's Bo, who's going to be meeting with you and showing you properties. And you're going to be in touch with both of us. And then here's Alex. Alex is my transaction manager, and she's going to be helping us from our contract to close. These are the three key people in this purchase. Do you have any questions? So it's setting that expectation up front on who the main sources are that they're going to be working with. And then it eliminates any, questions. We're finishing every step with, congratulations, I'm so excited that you just went under contract. And here's what's going to happen next. Alex, if you remember me talking about during our strategy session, is going to be reaching out to you and we're going to start processing your file. So it's setting those expectations up front. And then here's what's happening next.
That's awesome. So you mentioned strategy session, and I know that that's basically a buyer consultation. I think we may have stole that term from you guys because we also call it a strategy session. And so do you do that with every single buyer that you guys work with?
Yeah. The face-to-face is so important. In COVID, it was a ton of Zooms, and then that face-to-face. With this new law and everything else, we really, really wanted to push the face-to-face again. We are seeing a little bit of friction where people are really just wanting to just see the house and they want to do the show me. And so we've got to kind of pivot on that. And the whole point of those show me's is to get them back in person so that we can sit down and have a strategy session. But just understanding the importance of why it is that you want to come and meet with us. And the easy conversation around that, if you do a show me, is, David, I appreciate the fact that you really wanted to see this property today. And, it is a great property. And I've also heard all of the reasons why it doesn't work for you. If you would have come down and sat down with me and we could have done a strategy session and I could have gone through the process with you, I never would have showed you this house, right?
So you'll say that at the house.
Yes. And so then you just stop. Wait, right? Why am I talking? Stop talking. Let them process. And then you say, I heard you say that your schedule is really, really crazy. Can you give me 2 times that work for you that you can come meet with me this week? And we're leaving that appointment with an appointment, right? We're trying to get them to come in person. And typically, if you can show up, and like I said, we're not door openers, show value during that showing, that we're not just like, people know where the kitchen is, like, how are we showing up differently? Do we know why why they're selling? Do we know what their timeline is? Are we giving them that information? Are we showing up like the professional and not the pleaser, right? I always feel like when you show up as the pleaser and you're just an order taker, you're not in control. And so you're setting the expectation of what the entire transaction is going to look like if they decide to, buy that house. Who's going to be in control? The buyer. And oftentimes whenever we're like looking at things and they fall apart or there's a train wreck, we're like, what did we do wrong? What system did we not follow to end up where we are? And that oftentimes is what the answer is. We didn't follow the process. They didn't come in for a strategy session. We didn't explain inspections. We didn't go through the process and make them sure that they understand who we are as a team to give them the best experience.
Yeah, I love that. You kind of touched on what I was going to ask, but around your value, and with the changes that were made through NAR and all that kind of stuff, how that really affected your guys' business. And if you felt like there were things that you guys had to do differently, or if you guys were already doing a lot of these things pre, NAR changes, then what was it, August of 2024, I think it was. If you guys felt like you need to do something different to show your value, because it seems like you've nailed your systems and obviously you know what you're saying and how you're handling it and making sure that you can go through and really eliminate any unforeseen hurdles that'll show up as much as you can. It's real estate. There's always going to be stuff that shows up, but it sounds like you guys have kind of nailed that. So was this been in place before that, or did you guys start kind of tweaking these things with the changes?
So when Adam and I merged teams in 2018, this was the system and it started then. And it was messy, right? And I have no problem with just flying down the train and just being like, let's break every system, let's fix every hole, let's try and figure out how to make this the most efficient running team that we possibly can. So we always started off with a strategy session. I remember having conversations with the ISA team in 2018 when we merged, being like, if it's a phone consult, we're not counting it. Take it off of your metrics. We're not counting it. every person has to come and meet in person. And so it's been a very firm rule that we've had within our team. And we're always asking them to sign at the end of every strategy session from the build out of whenever I first started. We've always had them sign. I call it a loyalty agreement. It doesn't sound as, like
Love it.
strong as a contract. This is my loyalty agreement, and I've explained everything of how our team works. This basically says I'm going to work with you and you're going to work with me. Are you ready to sign that with me today so we can start the next step? Right. And so they're signing that up front. So there was no problem for me. I actually did a ton of training after all of that went out because, I basically say, like, you should know the contract, your job as a professional, and you should know the contract. Let's like the back of your hand. I can flip that contract upside down. I know which line every single thing is. I can go through it and I feel good with confidence. And if you don't know how to do that, I mean, that should be a big challenge for you is like, you should read that contract, every single one of them, buyer exclusives and the real estate contract. So you can just roll that off the tip of your tongue and it's no problem because people feel whenever you turn that around and you're fumbling, right? They're losing trust in you. They're losing confidence in you. But by the time that all this had, I mean, we've been doing it for, what is that, 6 years, 7 years?
Yeah.
So no big deal.
That's awesome. And then I wanted to ask this earlier. When you do the showing, the one-off showing, and then you say, hey, if we would have done a strategy session, we could have avoided this. Have you ever got what typically are they like, yeah, you're right, and then agree with you? Or do you ever get some like uncomfortable, awkward moments where it's like, yeah, so what? No, I'm still not meeting with you, or how does that go? Because I love that you just basically call it out like that and the showing, and it really sets up the opportunity to have the appointment, which is ultimately what you're wanting to do. And I think that really can help get it there. I am just curious for those that are listening. That's like, "Oh, that sounds really uncomfortable, though."
It's not uncomfortable because you're coming from a place of contribution. And, whenever you do a showing, like everybody thinks that they watch HGTV and like going and looking at houses looks like it's this really fun, glorified thing when all at the end of the day, it's stressful sometimes. Like you've got parents showing up with kids with one shoe on and they've obviously ran out the door and you've got to set up this entire process. And so I think if you can come from a place of contribution and a little bit of pain, gosh, this does seem really difficult, right? Then I think that it kind of helps. We kind of have a rule that we'll do 3 show me's before we need to really, really dial down on a sit down. But, I think if we can put some like metrics or systems around it, I think that's always really, really good. But it's kind of like doing a strategy session, going and looking at 7 properties and being like, what did I miss? And you blame it on yourself. I've missed something because I just showed you 7 properties and we haven't made a decision on any of them. Is there something in your search that has changed that we need to regroup on? And if they absolutely will not meet in person, then, we're asking for a Zoom. And if that's a thing, then we'll ask for a phone. So, I mean, we're one way or another, we're getting to some type of a consultation to do that strategy session.
Got it. So nailed that part. You're doing 200-ish deals on the buy side. How are you doing that many? Obviously, you've got what, 2 showing partners?
2 showing
2
partners.
showing partners. So they're doing the showings. You're doing the right. How are you keeping it all together?
What's really interesting is I was talking to somebody about this I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember what it was. There's a capacity thing that I think a lot of high producing agents just kind of have. And that's one of my strengths. I have a really, really high capacity and I'm able to just knock through things. And I'm very like focused. And if you saw my calendar, your head would probably be like, oh my gosh, because I literally have everything on my calendar. And I'm able to keep everything really, really straight, but I just move really, really fast. So, I mean, the other thing about me that people say is kind of like a unicorn type thing is like you can name a person or an address and like I can remember the entire process. Like Justin the other day, he was like, hey, do you remember this Nicola guy? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, man, that was like COVID and he was living in Las Vegas. And do you remember we did a Zoom as a buyer strategy session? His kitchen in there was like this tealish greenish color. And he's like, Justin's looking at me like, that was 5 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
how do you remember that? So I just have a really weird way of compartmentalizing things to where I can just like knock through them really fast. But then I'm just a very task oriented person and just know what to knock through. But I live by my calendar.
So do you have an admin that supports you as well?
I mean, I guess that would be my transaction manager, but I mean, she's got her own tasks for the day. We do check-ins and stuff like that, but no, I mean, I move real fast all
So
day long.
you're writing the offers and negotiating the offers. Yeah.
So we have a system that was built out during the crazy time frame, 2021. That I've got an email template that's on our notes that all of the team has. We now have moved this and transitioned this over to the list side, so we use it on both sides. So whenever Bo is in a property and he says, "Hey, we're writing on 123 Main Street," um, he is then plugging and play, right? He's just putting in purchase price, concessions, earnest money, type of inspection, you know, the title company, personal property, contingencies, expiration, if they've signed agreements, or the compensation, and if we have in person or if they signed online as far as like the buyer agency agreements. And we literally just send a text to the thread, which is the house that we're going to write on, and then the terms. And then the transaction manager's job is to plug and play. And we've had very strong conversations on that where it's like, we're not negotiating back and forth or, hey, Kari, how do I write this out? Or we need to add this or we need to take this off. When that template comes through, it is a plug and play. So it is a offer ready to go. She jumps in, types it up. If you mess up on that template, she's messing up on the offer, but whose fault is it really? You're right. And so a lot of times with that, which was great, is that before the people would even get home from showing that house, they already had an offer in their email.
So then Bo's at the showing, and before they leave, they're like, "Yeah, we want to write on it." And then you guys are talking essentially on the spot, saying, "Okay, cool. How do you know the price that you're offering at that point? Is staying in the house."
I mean, it just depends. So, if it was multiple offers or something like that, we knew all of that going ahead of time. Otherwise, Bo's saying, "Can you run comps on this?" I'm at my computer. That's kind of the benefit of me being here. They hide me. I always say it was like everybody hides me up in my office. I don't get to show property anymore, but I'm running comps. Yes, this feels good. This is where this needs to be. And we built systems around how we're writing every single offer. So it's a voice to voice conversation that we're having with every single agent. We've got 12 questions that we're asking every single agent before we write the offer so that we can show up with the terms that are most beneficial to the seller to get that for the buyer. And then the way that we're sending the offer, there's that text template is broken down into finer, just smaller bullet points, and that's sent to the agent. And same thing, the email is sent to the agent with those same bullet points. So it's a really fluid system to where, like, once we have the template, we're just basically like taking it and putting it in 3 different places to make sure that we're getting our offer at the same place. And then it makes us look really, really systematized, right? So even in multiple offers, agents will call me. We had somebody actually call me this morning and they're like, "Hey, you're not the highest, but I want to work with you because I can already tell you're going to make this transaction really, really seamless and easy." And so, just by systematizing the way that we're dealing with the offers, and they've got it in a text, they've got it in an email, they've had it on a phone call, it makes their job easier.
Which is what they want too, yeah. So, I mean, you guys, this is like so systematic. It's mind blowing. So then, are you doing the inspections once it's under contract, or is that also the transaction manager?
So this was one of those things, I think it was like in 2023, especially we're doing 200 buy side deals. That's what's closing. Like, you're not talking about how many deals that you put under contract that fall apart,
Great
right?
point. Do you know what that number is out of curiosity?
Yeah, we're right now at a 16% mutual release, which is really, really high. But actually, the national average is 15.3. So I mean, we are trending above that. But the one thing is like identifying why did those mutually release. So I mean, I told you I do audits all the time with spreadsheets and stuff like that. I've actually went through every single one of our mutual releases. Why did it release? Was it an inspection? Was it an appraisal? Was it buyer financing? What was it that happened? And we really, really track and try to pay attention to all of those different things. But when have 200 closings, how many inspections did you have to read to get through there? And so basically, the transaction managers, that we basically built out a template of, if it's a TPR valve, this is how it's written. If it's a new roof that has to be completely tore off, this is how it's written. If there's mildew in the crawl space, this is how it's written. If it's vapor barrier, so we've got a transaction manager cheat sheet that anybody can jump in whenever. So if you like jump in and you're like, highlight this, they can just look and grab and play the language. And so you're not having to reinvent the wheel every single inspection. So it just systematized
Yeah.
that. And then once the transaction manager, she was like, "I'm just going to take that off your plate." And she'll come to me every once in a while and be like, I need help with this. But, we're pretty much able to knock through those really, really fast because we've done so many of
I'm curious on the mutual release audit. What did you learn? Was there a trend
inspection.
of why? So most of it is from inspections.
Yeah, so from that, I took the 15 took the 15 inspections that were probably the worst, and I uploaded them into ChatGPT, and I said, come to me from a buyer's point of view and read through all of these and tell me the top 10, reasons why a buyer would want out of this and what are some things that we could be doing, kind of learn, right? And it's all the same things that we thought it was going to be, but it was really interesting to look at it from a different perspective.
What did it
It's
tell
all,
you?
I mean, the typical like roof, attic, mildew in the crawl space, termites, it's
Big
all the doom
stuff.
and gloom. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. So then another layer to this business that you have, ISAs. Can you share what that looks like? What's the ISA department look like and how are they then teeing you up?
So every incoming call comes through our ISA department. So their whole job is to run the buyer through the entire LP Mama. They're the ones that are setting the showing or they're setting the appointment or they're setting the listing. So, they're basically finding out the buyer's motivation. Are they approved? Do they need to get approved? Asking all of those questions. Are they working with an agent? We're asking all of the questions up front. And then the appointment is set. So we've got that systematized down to, you know, if a buyer is going to come in and do a strategy session for me, I've got a Google form that is telling me all about them, who they're approved with, what their timeline is, if they're in a lease, if they have a house to sell, what type of contingencies they would be, um, who the decision makers are. And so whenever they come to me and they're meeting with me, it's already got a bow on it, right? They're either coming in person and saying, here's my pre-approval, or they're emailing it before they even meet with me so that the next step, as soon as we're ready to go look at houses and I find a bunch of houses for them, we're able to go do that.
That's amazing. So how many ISAs do you have?
We have 4 right now. There's another company called Appointments Now that we've recently hired on to start calling through our pond. So one of the things that we found, this is kind of a hole I feel like that we found in our business because since January, I'm sure I feel like everybody's like, where are the leads? Like, where are all the leads? And everything that I listen to is like, you're paying outside sources referral fees on leads that are actually in your system. Have you ever really thought about that? And so, if you think about some of the systems that I don't want to name a couple because I don't know if I should or not, but if they transact with somebody, then you have to pay the referral fee. Well, some of those people have been in our system because what you find is the people that are clicking around, they're clicking around.
So then they end up on that person's site and then
So
they're
they
like,
end up
oh,
on
they qualify them and send them to you. Then you pay them a 25% fee and they were already in your database and you didn't have to pay them anything had you called them.
Yeah. And so what we found is like we've ponded some of these people and so like a new person would start. So Nick, my new showing partner, I was like, here's a pond, start going through there. Well, he's like sitting back here and these people are like, oh, I just bought a house. Oh, you just purchased a house? When did you purchase the house? Oh, back in July. Oh, that's so amazing. How did you choose your agent? It's the whole like dressing room. Have you ever heard of that? I think Jason Abrams has talked about it. Like you go into a store and somebody says, hey, can I help you? And you say, no, I'm good. And then you go and you start walking around and you start accumulating all this stuff on your arm. And then you're like looking for the person and they're nowhere to be around. And you go and the dressing room person says, do you need help? And they put you in a dressing room and now that's their commission. So it's if you don't stay in front of them, then somebody else is going to be able to pick up that person. So by putting those people in the pond and they're not being actively, you know, touched and everything else, then we're going to lose them. So we basically gave our entire pond to Appointments Now, and they're now trying to re-engage with those people. And it's those people because at the end of the day, everybody wants to buy a house. And if somebody says no, it's just a not now. Everybody keeps talking about the market, buyer reluctance. I'm like, it's not buyer reluctance. It is not now. And it's a pipeline market. That's how you need to be thinking about all of this right now is they may not want to purchase a house in the next 6 months, but what if they purchase them in the next year or 2 years? I will tell people that will say, I don't have a timeline. I don't care if you purchase a house next week or it's next year or it's in 5 years. I just want to be that person that trust and like and you want to do business with, and that you'll come to me. And so keeping those touches is really, really important. But there's so many people that I think get thrown into the pond because they're not now. And we're really bad at nurturing and following up with people. So we've hired that company to start calling in our pond.
So your in-house ISAs, they're taking inbound. So
Inbound.
anything that anybody calls in, anything because of the internet and that kind of stuff. Now, do they do any outbound calls? Do they do any circle prospecting, FISBO expired type work as well?
They will if we don't have the capacity or time to do it. So, if I'm too busy and I've got a specific person that wants to be in a neighborhood and I don't have time to do it, I'm going to go to the ISA. When they have time, they're going to do the outbound calls. I actually really, really love those. So those are like some of my favorites. I tend to keep those because I like to hunt people down and have conversations with them and then figure out their timeline. And then if they're like, I talked to somebody last week, I cold called and I was like, hey, somebody really wants to be in this neighborhood. And they said, well, my son is a junior in high school and we do want to move, but we don't want to move schools. So, I mean, it will be, so I'm like May of 2026. So it gave them to an ISA. I'm like, just throw in some like small nurtures and keep in front of them. And, we'll know that they'll be ready in 18 months. So I enjoy those calls,
Yeah,
but
fascinating. Okay.
in a TCPA friendly way.
It's key on your guys' business with, the ISAs and you guys have, a lot of different people in the mix. What's the mix of business as far as past client SOI repeat referral versus new inbound leads? What's that look like for your team?
Our sphere is huge. I mean, our past clients is massive. I would say that that's probably the biggest transition that I've seen since the 2020 and 2021. There were so many leads coming in, we couldn't handle it, right? I mean, they were just so many leads that were coming in. And then it kind of changed. And so what we realized is that we really need to just focus on our people because those are people that already believe in us. Those are people that like and trust us and they've already done business with us. And so they already have a track record with us and they're the easiest ones. So we're really, really event based. We're getting ready to do an event. Actually, on Sunday, it's my favorite event. It's our fall event. It's a pumpkin event. We give away pumpkins. And we've turned this into I mean, it's like a circus. It's crazy. So we've got pumpkins, we've got face painters, we've got ice cream trucks, we've got a fire truck, we've got princesses coming. It's at this place called Rutledge Wilson Farm, which is like a farm. So there's animals, so there's donkeys and goats and chickens and so kids can play on stuff. There's corn mazes. And then we just have all of our vendors coming. And so we've got bounce houses and then we're doing a ton of giveaways. And then we've got all of our vendors coming and they can set up their tents. And so then I was like, well, what if we make sure that every single person talks to our vendors? So we've made bingo cards for them so that people can come by and they can get stamps. And if everybody turns in a card that has the stamps, then they get put into a different raffle for an even bigger gift. And then from that, all of those vendors that have helped out, we're doing a vendor appreciation, which we did this last year and it was genius. We did a vendor appreciation for our vendors. How many times do people ask you for money for their big foundations and stuff like that, but they never do anything for you, right? So we rent out the Moxie, which is down here. It's a rooftop bar, and we do a ton of appetizers and we do a ton of drawings and stuff like that. But it's a vendor appreciation, and it's one of our funnest nights just because we're able to say thank you.
So your team then hosts a party and you invite all your lenders, title inspectors, all home warranty, all the people that you work with all the time. And just say, hey, come on and come hang out with us. And then you guys are paying for the event, the food, the beer, all reversed. Instead of them sponsoring it, you're sponsoring it just to say thanks.
So yes, on the vendor appreciation, yes,
Yeah,
we
just
are.
specifically that, not your other event. I'm just
That's
clarifying
us
it.
saying thank you to all of our vendors, and we invite everybody. And we've got our carpet people, our cleaning people, our painters, our plumbers that we use, our septic people, our inspectors. Like
How
it's
much
so much.
referral business do you get just from doing that one event? Do you happen to know?
The vendor one or the other one?
The vendor one. And I'm only honing in on that because I have not really ever heard of a team doing that. I think it's genius that you're thanking your vendors because they're paying for the other event, which also sounds cool. And I'll ask you about that in a sec, and all the other events that you're doing. But rarely then is an agent or a team then going, hey, I'm going to have a thank you party for you because you've been helping me all year. I've not
I
seen,
mean,
that's very cool.
I don't know that we've ever really like tracked that, which I mean, if you can tell I'm a lunatic about tracking, it's one of my superpowers. But I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you right now and I'm sitting there going, oh, that person and that person and that person. And actually Justin was with somebody today that came from he's our trust attorney that we send everybody to for trust. And that one referral, it's a $1.2 million buyer for a 1031 exchange that Justin was with this morning down in Branson. I mean, that'll pay for itself. And
Yeah.
that's just one.
You see,
So,
that's
I
what's
mean,
great is you really are establishing those relationships at an even higher level than we already try to. You know, and you say thanks and you do appreciate them, but doing that I think goes above and beyond. And I just assumed that you would get referrals from that because if I'm them, I'm going, yeah, these guys are legit. Not only do they send me business all year, then they also thank me, at the end of the year and do this. Like, absolutely, if I'm going to refer, I'm going there, you know. So it makes a ton of sense. And then you talked about the event you have coming up on the pumpkin event. Is that then sponsored by a lot of those guys, I assume?
yeah, it's all sponsored by them. So, I mean, this event, Melinda is our director of operations. She's like the queen of all things. And but yeah, I mean, this event, have already raised so much money that it's no money out of pocket. We've actually got a little bit kind of, able to use for some other things if we need to, or just knock this one out of the park. So,
That's awesome. And how many events a year will you guys do?
we're really big on events. So we do this pumpkin event, which is really big. We do a dump, shred, and donate DDD, and it's out in our parking lot, which is really, really good. We'll do the pies. We will give away probably 550 pies for Thanksgiving. And what's really fun is that like this event is more towards like kids. So we understand like, some people don't want to come to that, but they will come to the pies because we make that more of like a happy hour and like coffee and tea and hors d'oeuvres. And then here's your pie, and we get hugs at the same time. So that one's good. We do our Christmas cards. And then for Easter, we do the bunny. So this year, I think we had 3 bunnies going to people's houses, sprinkling their eggs. So that's been really, really fun. We kind of opened that up to a couple. We had our VIP list for the bunnies, and then we picked 2 neighborhoods that we do a ton of business in, and we basically got on their Facebook pages and in their, was it next door or something like, I don't know. And we were like, if you want Grady Real Estate to come sprinkle your yard. And so that way it kind of hyper focused in a couple of
Smart.
neighborhoods to build some of that in our name. And then I think I'm missing something else. We've got something at the Discovery Center, and then we're getting ready to do we're like doing a build house at the Discovery Center.
Gosh, you guys aren't very busy.
Well, I mean, we love our people.
You
And I
do.
think that that's one of the things. It's like, we're not here to, have a transaction, get a check, and never talk again, right? We don't believe in commission breath. Like, it's just not even a thing. Like, I want clients for life. I've helped Adam. I've helped one of his clients. This is his 18th transaction. And so, I mean, it's like, those are the people that we love, and, the referrals that we get from them, that means so much to us. So we reward those referrals too. We'll get a referral, and the next thing you know, a bottle of wine will show up at their house. We're just really big on letting people know that if they're referring us, that it's a huge impact in our business.
I love it. Is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
I
If
don't
I'm
think
out there listening and I would want to know about this amazing machine you guys have built and how it's running, is there something else? The showing partner model with the buy side, the ISA, all that kind of the events. I feel like we've covered a lot. Is there anything else?
I think as agents, a lot of times what I hear people say is that they're preparing to prepare themselves out of the business. And the number one thing that I would say is like, get in and let it be messy. Let the wheels fall off the tracks and just keep moving it forward. And I think that right now, in this world of the market changing constantly, and there's so much distraction in the real estate industry, if you would just show up like you would if you were on a salary job and put your head down and do the things and activities that you're supposed to do, you're going to be successful. And there is no secret sauce to it. Everybody's always like, what are these things? Or calling Adam or calling me, and how are you guys this busy, and how have you done this many transactions? We're just super focused. I am very, very routine based. I am here every single day. I show up every single day. I do what I have to do to move the business forward, and I'm unapologetic for it. And so I always say focus appears rude. I'm not rude. I'm just very, very focused. I'm here to work so that whenever I can go home, I can be where my feet are. And so I think that there's a lot of distractions with the interest rate and everything else. Nobody cares about the interest rate, right? We've done 396 transactions this year with the interest rate. It doesn't matter. It is an embedded objection to make you justify why you're not doing business, and stop it, right?
Love it.
Just go, show up, do what you need to do, talk to the people that you need to do, talk to more people than you think you need to, and the business will come.
You said something else that I have to ask. What's home life like? I mean, you guys are dominating the real estate industry. When do you sleep? What are you doing? Are you just working 24/7? I mean, I know you have kids, so.
I do. So our girls are 10, they're gymnasts, and I almost oftentimes say I feel like their schedule is sometimes harder than ours because they train until like 8 or 8:30 every single night. So, because of that, I'm off, work at 5 o'clock on Tuesdays and Fridays for sure because they are not training. But, that kind of gives me a little bit of time that if I need to stay a little bit late, I can. But I am very much a be where your feet are. So if I am at work, I am at work. If I am at home, I am at home with my girls. I am playing with them, hanging out with them, going to their meets. I've never missed a swim meet. I've never missed a gymnastics meet. I'm very, very present with them.
Very cool. Last question I have for you before we wrap up today. What is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you in this business?
Oh gosh. So many, many moons ago, whenever I was able to show property, right? They let me out of my hole. I remember going and showing property. It was during the summertime and I had some clients with me and, the house was vacant and it had a pool, and I went into the house and the house was not vacant and there were people in the shower. And I
No?
was like, they like walk in, I'm like, hello. And like, as we go back and we're getting closer to the primary, I'm like, there's a shower on. And my clients freaked out and then was like just trying to get out of the property as fast as we can.
Did you
We all
go back
laughed
there
about
to
it.
see if people were in the shower, or the shower just left on?
No, I do not want any part of that. It's
Maybe
like, get me
somebody
out.
left it on and there was nobody there.
The listing agent can go.
Yeah, it's always awkward.
Yeah,
And the
I think
house was
that's
supposed to be
happened.
vacant though? The house was supposed to be vacant though?
The house was supposed to be vacant, but maybe someone went and they swam and then they needed a shower. I don't.
You never know. Got to rinse the chlorine off. Well, this has been wonderful. I could spend about another hour questioning you on all these things. For anyone else that's listening that would love to ask you more, how can people find you? Or if they have a referral for you?
Oh my gosh, I love referrals. I'll take great care of everybody. So you can email me anytime. My email is kariw@kw.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, appreciate your time today. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And for those out there listening, thanks again for joining in, and stay tuned for another episode of Realty Resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Realty Resilience. Be sure to join our free Realty Resilience Facebook group where real estate professionals connect, share strategies, and access resources. You can also follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insights. And remember, we release new episodes every 2 weeks. See you next time.